So in my last few videos, I've been talking a bit about the healing power of sexual energy. And just to clarify this, because I had a few comments that people maybe didn't quite understand this, to tap into the healing power of sexual energy, we don't need to have sex. In fact, we don't even need to self-pleasure in order to tap into this energy. We can be celibate, not even masturbating, and use our consciousness to tap into this energy and use it to heal our bodies, to build the love energy in our hearts, to put into creativity, to put into spirituality. In fact, what many monks in the East do, in particular Taoist monks, is they meditate with their sexual energy and enter a very high blissful state of just almost like transcendence through taking the sexual energy and bringing it into the brain, into an area which houses the pineal gland, the pituitary gland. The Taoists call this area the crystal palace, and using this energy to actually activate the pineal gland. So in Taoism, this practice is referred to as returning the Jing to feed the brain. So Jing is our essence, it's our vital energy, and one of the powerful forms of Jing is sexual energy. So for example, when we have a horny feeling, this is a manifestation of Jing energy. And the idea, let's say particularly for a male, would be, rather than ejaculating, to take the sexual energy actually into his spine, bring it up the spine and into his brain, and use it, as it says, to feed the brain. So this sexual Jing energy, which is our life force energy, and it's that energy that has the ability to literally create a new life, to rejuvenate our cells as well. So this energy is like a superfood for our body and soul, and it really can sort of revitalize our whole body when we start actually bringing the sexual energy into the body, rather than it being stuck or blocked in our sexual organs. So also to clarify again, something that was just put in a comment before a question that somebody asked. This energy is there whether we're young, whether we're old. In some people it moves through their body, and I've heard of people who are basically actually asexual, and they are asexual actually because their energy is so much moving in their body and transforming their body and feeding them and keeping them actually really young. So when we say sexual energy in these terms, when we're maybe outside of the sort of Western sexual sort of dialogue and context of sort of sexual repression versus kind of sexual excess, we're coming into a place where these definitions may be a little different from what Western people think. So yesterday we just had the alignment of Jupiter and Saturn, and there's said to be like a huge astrological shift going on at the moment, and I definitely feel like this change of energy, which is just this incredible change of energy. And I think it's like now more than ever, it's really important for us to actually learn to be able to start tapping into our sexual energy and really understand our sexual energy and use it in a conscious way. So today I wanted to talk a little bit more about how we can do this, and ways in particular to use orgasmic energy to be able to actually feed our consciousness and even open up the pineal gland in the same way that the monks and nuns of ancient times in China, the Taoist monks and nuns would do. So if I talk a little bit about my own experience with this, so when I first discovered about the Taoist sexual practices and started learning to do exercises like the microcosmic orbit, the inner smile, the 6 healing sounds, a huge transformation and shift started to happen in my body. So after a couple of months of doing this, in particular doing the microcosmic orbit, my whole body started to change, and I started just getting these like really, really pleasurable, amazing sort of vibrations, a bit like kind of orgasmic vibrations, just happening quite involuntarily as I was meditating. And it all surprised me and confused me, and it took me a little while to actually like find an answer of what was going on. But when I did, and when I started looking into it, what I realized that it was that in Taoism, we talk about the body having three energy centers. So the energy of the lower self, which is by the navel, the middle energy in the heart, and the higher energy, which is in what we call the crystal palace, in the middle of the brain, which is where our pineal gland is sitting. So probably a lot of you have heard about pineal gland activation and people trying to activate their pineal glands. And there's different ways of doing it. During sex, it can activate. During meditation, it can activate. And when we meditate with our sexual energy, it most definitely can do some like really quite incredible, amazing things to us. So when we first start working with our energy, usually what we do is we work with the energy in the belly, and we start to transform the Jing, or let's say the feeling of horniness, into what's known as chi energy, or just vital energy, the kind of energy that makes us feel energized and revitalized. Then once we have enough of that energy, that chi energy, that energy then moves up, probably on its own, up into our hearts. And in our hearts, it starts transforming into a more refined kind of energy, which is called Shen. So we can say this is love energy. This is the energy of love. And Shen is also, for example, when we talk to someone and we see a lot of just shine in their eyes and really able to connect with their eyes, this is because the Shen in the heart is very strong. So this is the first process of basically taking our sexual energy, our feelings of horniness, bringing them up into our hearts, and in our hearts, transforming that energy into love. Now that is basically the first step of sexual alchemy, and it's really important to have this very, very strong energy of love, because as long as we're doing sexual practices from an egoistic place, so for example, my ego feeding off of my partner's pleasure, rather than me as a pure soul from a place of love in my heart, feeding and sharing energy, there will always be a loss of energy, because when the energy is going to the ego is a non-entity. It's not actually something that exists. So this is why it's so important to have an open heart, a really open heart, that their energy is coming up, that our sexual energy is coming up, but also this energy to be, if we're with a partner, connecting with that partner, or just giving ourselves like all that self-love. And this is a really essential, important part of alchemy. And it's very easy for us to get into conscious sexuality or esoteric sexual practices from a place of ego. And it's not necessarily even a bad thing to start off from that place, but it's not a good place to stay, because then what happens is a lot of sort of inauthentic relationships are being created, which can actually cause like a huge amount of distress and upset. And at the same time, you yourself will not be benefiting from it. Now, we have to remember, we've been programmed to fear love, to act inauthentically, to have sex in an inauthentic way, to relate inauthentically. So for most people, to take that step to go from the inauthentic to the authentic is a big step of conscious intention that we really have to focus on, become very aware of what we're doing, because of course most people aren't aware that maybe things that we're doing, they are actually egotistical, or probably we wouldn't be doing them. But then once we've really got this like firm basis of love, and I mean, number one, self-love. So self-love that's really just saturated our heart, gone into all the cells in our bodies, and then it's just spreading around us, just filling our aura. So there's just so much love energy that we're just producing, a little bit like when a fire gets started and it grows and grows, and it's kind of just growing on its own. So we don't need to worry when we have a lot of self-love. We can't give too much away, and we won't lose energy through giving self-love out, giving the extra self-love out. And of course, the really important thing for that is that when we have all that self-love energy, so much self-love energy here in our hearts, like it's very difficult for anyone to hurt us. I mean, sure, we'll feel things, but to get that kind of heartbreak and traumatization from perhaps being mistreated by someone, whether it's a person we're sexually involved with or otherwise, it's just, we're just very, very protected, because that love energy is like a fire energy that's basically like protecting, our whole hearts. So the next stage, once we've got this really nice, build up of self-love, once our cells are really being sort of, energized and revitalized with this sexual energy, or what we could say is the alchemized sexual and loving energy, which forms a third kind of energy. The energy can then start flowing up into what's known as the crystal palace. Some might refer to it loosely as the third eye, or the pineal gland. And then in the pineal gland, that's when we really can start to gain like a very higher sense of consciousness, and also like a real like direct connection with the forces of the universe, which are basically able to then guide us. So I mean, my own personal experience, for example, I've experienced actually having sexual experiences of sexual ecstasy, where I've literally hallucinated for shorter periods of time, almost as if I'd taken drugs. I've also actually had I guess as I've started to transform the energy more and more, what started to happen is I've just started to get like much more of a sense of being guided to where I need to go. And of course, this isn't to say, of course I have doubts, of course I have fears, of course I have frustrations. This is a normal part of being human, but just the ability to deal with it changes, because it's almost like you get a kind of like a higher sense of purpose. And then just even things like the colors around us, the smells, everything, it just has like much more of a kind of stronger sort of sense of just actually like being in reality, almost like when people, for example, they microdose, and it's actually to get a similar effect of what happens when we're sort of really transforming the sexual energy. And another thing I've noticed is really like a lot of sort of serendipity happening in my life. So just coincidence after coincidence that is just not a mere coincidence, that I'm able to kind of put a thought out into the universe that I'm looking for something, that I need something, and that thing then coming to me. And as I mentioned before, yes, sure, whatever spiritual practices we do, we still have negative things happen to us, but what's important is that to have tools to deal with this stuff, to have ways to get through hard times, to be able to really be able to deal with things when, for example, something is quite deeply hurtful, or maybe makes us angry, or we're very afraid about things. So yeah, the power of sexual energy, and absolutely like the power of sexual energy to rise up the body, to really heal our hearts, create this love, which is really what humanity is needing so much at the moment, and then actually awaken the pineal gland. And of course, this all very much can be part of a pleasurable sexual life if that's what you're looking for. It can be part of a celibate practice. It can be part of self-loving. You can use it in whatever way that you want, no matter how old you are, how young you are. It's just a practice that's just great for anybody to do. And yeah, I definitely found out about this through my Taoist practice, and I completely would suggest to try that microcosmic orbit. There's a video on my YouTube here that you can find. Try to follow the meditation. Also, I have a few other videos explaining exercises, for example, how to breathe into the belly in order to allow the sexual energy to start moving into your body, as well as basically how to open up your your heart. So I hope you found this video useful, and please feel free to comment, or you can find me on Facebook as well. And thank you very much for watching.